Certainly is then. 2012. I don't think it's the beginning of the end. I don't think it's the beginning of the end. I think it's the end of us sort of sat here wondering what's going on, and it's time we moved into actually changing what is going on. That is my perspective. That's where I come from. That's what I want to achieve. I don't mean fighting. I don't mean using all the tools that they give us. That's not what I'm after talking about at all. I think we have to use it intelligent. It's intelligence, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We have to actually come up and use their words against them, because that's what they do. They've created this system.
Mm-hmm.
This system, I think everybody is comfortable with, like, order out of chaos, aren't they?
Yep.
Everyone thinks order out of chaos, that's how they do it. I can see them doing it. They're doing it over there and they're doing it over there. And I don't think people have realised they've been doing it your entire life. Your entire life has been lived in chaos. This isn't new. It's never new. It's only new to those that discover it.
Discover it, yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun except those that discover it, or recover it, whichever way we want to go. Right, just waiting for our guest to come online. I'm expecting him in the next few moments. Spoke to him about an hour and 40 minutes ago, and yep, there we are. We are in business. So, without further ado, let's see if we can get sorted. And yeah, press a couple of buttons back in a second.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
It certainly is our turn. So, let's do this. We have, this evening, it is an absolute pleasure as well. It really is a pleasure. So, who have we got with us this evening, my friend? Who have we got with us?
We have got Michael Tsarion.
We have, and a very good evening to you, sir. Now, let's just start off with...
Yeah.
You do that bit.
I'll do his little bio, yeah. Born in Northern Ireland, Michael Tsarion is an expert on the occult histories of Ireland and America. He's author of the acclaimed books Atlantis, Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation, Astrotheology and Sidereal Mythology, The Irish Origins of Civilization, and The Trios Life, Exposing the Art of Holy Deception.
The very gentleman, out of all the years I've been studying this, the very gentleman who has helped me most in my path. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Michael Tsarion.
Oh, Paul, nice to be on. Thanks, mate.
You're very, very welcome. Can I ask you just to perhaps, do you have the ability to give us a little bit more volume there?
A little bit more volume.
That would be absolutely lovely. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you in Seattle, sir. Now, I've never spoke to someone like yourself before. I've been excited about it all day, and I thought, how do I open the conversation with someone like yourself? And then I thought, I'm going to ask the three questions that 99.9% people have trouble answering. Where have we come from? Where are we going? And why are we here?
I haven't a clue.
Well, I think all of us are certainly taking a stab in the dark, but yourself, I think you've got a brighter torch than most of us. So, I mean, where have we come from? Your research has led you from one end of the history spectrum to the days in front of us. And the books that you've written have certainly illuminated a lot of people as to how on earth this crazy system works. But it's only crazy because we're only just starting to understand it. I think from the people who sit at the top, it's nothing short of genius, really.
Oh, that has to be, you're quite right. I mean, always need to be borne in mind is that the technology, the thinking that created this whole matrix of control is extraordinary. It might be criminal. I mean, the history of mankind is a criminal history. Never let us forget that. But at the same time, the people who have put it together, the people who have used these divide and rule and problem, reaction, solution techniques, you know, they're not particularly stupid. They may be evil. They may be corrupt as hell. They may hate the human race, but they're very, very intelligent. And we need to be doing our homework and keeping up to speed, you know, with them. With that kind of intelligence in order to sort of track where they're going and what they're doing in order to even have a remotest chance of changing things around. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, and you're right to say that this problem isn't just, you know, young. It didn't just start at the Industrial Revolution, or it's not just a corporate issue or greedy men. A lot of people who come to this kind of work often think, hey, come on, it's just about a bunch of greedy tycoons and newspaper owners and corporate jacks. You know, but anybody who's done any homework knows that that's absolutely nonsensical, and that this conspiracy is much, much, much older. The further you go back in history, whether that be to the rise of Venice or even before, you know, to the British East India Company or before, or what, you know, even to the rise of Christianity or before, you still pretty much are seeing the hidden hand of conspiracy. And let's not forget also, Paul, that when people like myself, are known to be exposers of various conspiracies or various injustices, let us never forget that that is also what the average newspaper journalist does. It doesn't take people like from our world. Forget for a moment about the Jim Marses, and Ralph Ellis's and Michael Tsarions and David Icke's. Skeptics need to understand, people listening to your show need to understand that, look, if you open the average newspaper, if you turn on Esther Ranson, if you turn on TV, you will find that a vast majority of it is exposing various forms of corruption. The newspapers do it. They expose politicians. They expose corrupt police chiefs. They expose, like we've seen with the Catholic Church, these pedophile priests. So first of all, conspiracy is out there, and the exposure of conspiracy and the exposure of enormous corruption is a generic thing. Let's never forget that. The only difference in a person like myself is that we take it one step further. We go where other people do not want to go. Your average newspaper and your average journalist is not particularly keen on exposing people like, the College of Cardinals, for instance, or the Mother Teresa's, or the Queen of England, So they do have a certain line that they prefer not to cross. The only difference with people like me is I'm not afraid to cross that line. I go beyond your local mayors and your police chiefs, and I go back further in history. But besides that, what we're doing is not by any means unusual. It's just taking it further. It's just digging somewhat deeper. It's just taking bigger risks. So this is why I find it unacceptable for people, you see, who suddenly, when they come across this information, to call us names and to think we're doing something extremely bizarre, when as a matter of fact, 95% of what we're doing is done by the average person. Even housewives have done it. There's people in Dover today, housewives, right, who are exposing the British government for the kind of environmental pollution that has been on that part of the coastline because of the tests that were done during the Second World War by the army. Okay, so these are generic cases where ordinary people have helped to expose massive conspiracy. So we're not some sort of freaks. We're not some sort of conspiracy nuts. It's just that all we do is we've taken it further. And then the last thing to say about that point is some of the biggest criticisms you get are from people who imagine that they know everything there is to know just because they're professor such and such and doctor such and such and they've got some sort of qualification from a university. I'm not against it, but I'm saying I am against it when these people stand up and try to debunk us, because I just say to them, when you call somebody like me a cherry picker, if I had a degree, then I'm doing research. So if you're not part of the team, right, then you are spurious, then you're a conspiracy nut, and then you're a cherry picker, and then you don't know what you're talking about, and where's your proof, Michael? But the moment that I just had a simple, qualification from some asshole university somewhere, now I'm doing research. Now I got a budget. Now I can write a paper. You see, just a simple stepping over that line, and suddenly you have a halo around you. Whereas if you're not part of that establishment, get thee hence, we don't want to know what you're doing. This is what I think is bogging down the human race. It's why people don't understand or don't want to understand the antiquity of this conspiracy. You've got to look back to the past. If you want to understand the times we're living in, you've got to look to the origins of these, sorts of conspiracies and the sort of machinations of colonization that have been going on. You have to do that. You have to never forget to look at the dark side of human history. It's a criminal history after all, and that's the history of England, the history of Ireland, the history of Russia, Africa, you name it. I mean, just it's unbelievable when you start looking deeply into the history of these countries, of the role that Holland has played, and Belgium, and all of these kinds of things. And then that gives you in the end, it gives you a crystal clear insight as to what is going on in today's world. You're no longer relying on newspapers. You're no longer relying on shoddy, very superficial insights and pundits. You have yourself grasped world conspiracy. You've understood how the architecture of control works, and that is a very, very empowering. It won't win you too many friends, but it will win you something much more powerful than that, which is insight into things that your forefathers for centuries never understood. You will have that knowledge. So there's no turning back for people like me, you see, on this road, because it's so empowering.
Now, I remember in the early years, I've got a side with me, my friend Andy, and we've actually we've walked together down this road, haven't we?
We have.
And we actually thought that we would take a different path, but we actually didn't, did we? We've stayed on the same path, and the scenery's been the same for us, because we've been painting the same pictures as we've been going, haven't we? Mm-hmm. And you're sort of nodding away while Michael's talking, and I'm nodding away, and we're going, yeah. I think the first thing that I remember really struggling with is, why won't people listen? and I didn't realise that the transmissions or the actual information we were giving out was totally alien to what anybody else was saying. I thought everybody should need to know. I thought I was going to have to quit my job, open a radio station, and broadcast to the world because that was my destiny. It didn't take long to realise that I wasn't going to have many listeners, but it was yourself. And I remember in the early days when you were saying about obviously the Bible is something that people ignore in the early days, and I was guilty. You weren't, but you were familiar with it, and you actually made me pay attention to what was in the Bible, and listening to Michael and others talking about what's written in the Bible. We can use some of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't go with it for a long time. But as I've been going down this journey path, the scenery is starting to make sense. That wherever we are today, we've been made to be it.
Well, the church plays a big hand in this. Of course, there is somebody above the church. That's why we know that it's theology and it's monarchy, which means that there's a third hidden power that I refer to as the Atonists. One can call them Luciferians. There's a whole... One can call them world controllers. But you're right, theocracy, the religious thing, is a huge area that needs to be taken on. It can be quite daunting for people. But then at the end of the day, it's not that daunting. It's not that difficult, because even Jesus says when he's asked by his disciples, he was actually speaking to them about parables, how he teaches in parables. He teaches in metaphor. We've got the church father Origen. We've got Tertullian. We've got Clement of Alexandria. We've got Maimonides, the great rabbi, emphasizing to the flock that there is an esoteric, hidden, secret. Even the Catholic Church refer to it as the disciplinary arcani, which is the secret knowledge reserved for those that they picked. There's Jesus right there in the Bible. I haven't got the chapter and verse in front of me, but he says, I speak in parables, never do I speak, but it is in parable. And so all you've got to do is take that statement and apply it also to the Old Testament, to the book of Genesis, to the various metaphors, and realize that they're metaphors. Realize also that, like we're just talking about the book of Genesis, that in that particular case, that book was completely plagiarized from much earlier works. The proof is there. Things like that. But even if you don't bother going back to the prototypes from which they came, like the Babylonian and Sumerian and Akkadian originals, say you don't even bother doing that, you just read it as it is in the Bible, then you have to realize that there is an exoteric meaning, which is just full of nice garments and nice drama, and then behind it is a secret message that is only reserved for those who've got the true keys of decipherment. So when you mentioned my books in the beginning there, especially Tree of Life, that one is dedicated to this, is to provide the reader with those keys of decipherment. I've been studying all my life, so those keys of decipherment are far more subtle than the ones by which we say decode what's happening politically. It's quite different. Remember the cross keys? The Vatican has the symbol of the cross keys. There's two keys. It's almost like, here's a key to the door of the left brain. Here's a key to the door of the right brain. Here's a key to the door of man's body, which we use kings and we use government to control. But here's another key, the key to his heart, the key to his emotions. We have the key to the lock of that door as well. And what I would say to that is that the keys of decipherment, to understand how the mind control works when it comes to religion, is very different than the kind of keys that the average, guy at the end of the bar, who's quite good at deciphering the crap of politicians. It's quite a different matter. So it's more subtle, and therefore it's a longer study. And this year I brought out that book, Trees of Life, which is 30 years or more for painstaking reading of literally thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of works. Most of them, a good many of them, out of print. Very hard to find books. And reading them meticulously, detailing them, rereading them again, dozens of times to get some of these books are written by Masons. Some of these people were written by people, Rosicrucian authors that wrote in the 15th and 16th and 17th century, trying to crack what they're talking about, then cross-referencing those works, you see, to try to tease out, what do these people think? What on earth are they talking about? Why do they love this metaphor? Why don't they speak in plain language? What's the ultimate, game behind all of this? So this is, needs to go on. But then he who knows more must do more. So my policy is that once you've cracked it, and once you think you have one doesn't have the whole picture. One's always growing. I mean, I'm always developing. I'm always changing my view on things. You know, my new DVD coming out on female Illuminati will restate some of the stuff I've done before, but it'll also be looking at some of that stuff I've looked at before in a different light. That's progress. I'm not a static person who just sees these facts in one way, you see.
Yeah.
But, and that's very, very important that we keep evolving. But having said that, as I said, he who knows more must do more. So I try to put it into books in concrete and clear form so that people don't have the 30 years to work this all out, can quickly understand it, quickly get it through the videos that I have and the interviews that we've done and through the books as well, so that people quickly grasp this. And they are doing that. So as you said, in the beginning, you know, you have all these aspirations about what you're going to do, and you feel very passionate about creating your radio show or writing the books. And then you find out that, you know, really the world just passes you by. They're more interested in, again, the cheeseball stuff that's on TV or video games or, you know, the latest rubbish that's in the newspaper. And that is true because people are traumatized. I've gone into this so many times about people are completely overstimulated. They can't take on board anything new, and they certainly don't want to be told that everything they know is wrong. And that takes an extremely courageous person to do that. So you guys have done that. You've been able to accept that. You've been able to say, yeah, I know what I don't know. Socrates said, the more I know, the more I know I don't know. Yeah. That's the sign of a very wise person, is the ones who always know that the level of their ignorance. And from that point, then they become the greatest observers of life. They become the greatest students of life, and their minds are always open. And there are very few of those people, and they're getting fewer and fewer and fewer as we go. They're not getting more. They're getting less. The new generation that's coming up, then this generation was bad enough, and the new generation that's coming, unless something very radical happens, we're going to see a generation that is so paper thin, so absent of the hardwire to even remember history or care about what even happened in the past, the sacrifices that have been made. We're going to have such an incredibly artificial new generation that even the most extreme pundits and activists and Cassandras who have always been warning about the state of things to come, even their prophecies are going to be paltry compared to what we're going to be seeing soon.
Yeah, we talk about that, don't we? We've actually spoke about it just 10 minutes before we got you on, and you and I both see the same things, don't we? We see the cartoon world being created around us, don't we? Mm-hmm. We see grown men wearing T-shirts that you would find in children's stores.
Yeah. That's right.
We see our local pub chain here is called Wetherspoons, and it's a national brand. And the Wetherspoons that we have here, I've only been in it twice, and I noticed the first time I walked in, the furniture is too big. So when you sit on the furniture, it doesn't matter how tall you are, your legs are off the ground, like when you were little. And all around the walls is the Alice in Wonderland mural. And as soon as I went in there, I thought, this is like a creche for grown-ups. It feels like a creche for grown-ups. And then you think, is that reality what they're trying to create? And then you look in McDonald's, and you think, that's just been refitted like animal pens.
Have you ever seen, because I was noticing the same thing this week, I've seen many men in their late 50s dressed up as if they were ready to jump back into the car.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you also seen these characters? I don't know. They're in America. They're all over Europe. Have you seen these guys who? It's not rollerblades. They're like a combination between a rollerblade and a long ski.
Yep.
And they have these ski sticks.
Yep.
And they go down and make a complete imbecile of themselves by wheeling themselves down the footpath. Have you ever seen these characters?
We've got new old-fashioned scooters, haven't we? We've got little scooters, the little 1 foot on, 1 foot off scooters.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. But we've got 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds doing this.
Yeah. I'm all for exercise, but when I see a 60-year-old guy, like he wants to go back and be on the tricycle.
Yeah.
And as you say, this is a great observation you've made, because I've made it myself. The clothes that they wear, even the gait, the way they walk, there is this infantilism. I wouldn't even say it's coming back, because Sigmund Freud and these people have already pointed out that the whole human race is operating on an infantile level, whether it's their belief in false gods and religious claptrap or whatever it might be. So I wouldn't even say it's coming back. I'd say it's getting more egregious. I just say that people, and it's trauma that does it as well. So when you speak about the interior decor of some of these places, and even the McDonald's, fast food outlets, this idea of comfort, this idea of panacea, this idea of live in a one-season world, don't dare look at anything dark.
I know, it's true.
Don't face yourself. And it's done in such a subtle way. I think in my documentaries, especially things like The Age of Manipulation and other ones, where we deal with the symbolism. I've shown time and time again how on the boxes of even the fast food, even the logos on the sides of the cups, it's all about living in this one season world. In fact, if people go to my symbolism thread, on the forum, they'll see umpteen examples of this: Folgers, coffee, smiling,
Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. Imbecilic, infantilism, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse and worse because they want to turn off your thinking completely, and they're doing a bloody good job.
Yeah, you look at the star and the books, and you just look at the two symbols, and you think, well, I know where that's come from. I know one's that one. I'm seeing blue squares everywhere, me, this week and last week. I'll tell you, I actually own a fish and chip shop here in the UK. I live in North Yorkshire, and an old-fashioned fish and chip shop. And my fish supplier has changed his boxes, right? He's been bought out by a bigger company, and these boxes have got his little logo in a blue square. And I thought, that's one blue square. Took no notice, right? Right. Then, okay, another supplier, right? He has just changed all his invoices. Blue squares. So you think there'll be a bloody third one. And a website that I go to, well, I'm not going to mention the name because I'm not trying to insinuate, they've just redesigned it. And it's blue squares. And I'm thinking, that's 3 this week, I'm not looking anymore. But it is everywhere. It is. I mean, I think we've been lured back into the Matrix. I think the Matrix can be decoded, the word can be decoded as uterus or womb. I know there are many decodes for it, but there's many realities that it fits in as well. But I know Matrix is a really old word, and it does apply to Matrix, uterus or womb. And I think we're being lowered back into the womb to be genetically engineered. That makes sense in the language as it decodes for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in one of the talks I recently did in Australia, I was mentioning, again, had to do it very briefly, but this whole imagery of the female and the feminine and the mother, with an idea that we will go back. They know that subconsciously we desire to go back to those sort of the womb-like bliss, this Euroboric, nirvanic, pleromic state of total unconsciousness. So they then slap this onto your Starbucks. Here she is with her legs spread wide open. Does anybody get the message here? No, I don't think they do, but here you are. Here's a shield and a gig for you, and over here's another big, dystopia thing for you. The symbolism of the female and the mother is extremely powerful, as we know, and it works wonders. And the large M, even for McDonald's, there's a lot of play on this. The design of the portico of a lot of fast food restaurants looks like they're going into inside a church, for instance.
It does.
It
does, and the letter M in some old-fashioned portraits, pictures that we've seen, some old Masonic type bloodlines, the self-portraits they've had painted, all their hands are actually placed in an unnatural type fashion, with the two middle fingers together and the two outer fingers, the small and the first. So it makes the letter M, and you think, oh, that's just one portrait, and then you see another one, then you see another one, then you see and all of a sudden there's a website full of 30 of them, and they're all making the M sign with one of their hands.
It's very, very strange, and I think my research leads me to believe that actually is a symbol for Mary, and it's a reference to Mary Magdalene, because I'll be talking about her a lot more in the female Illuminati. It's actually, I believe I may be wrong, but I think it ties into this whole female secret society cult, but I don't want to say too much about that right now. I'm still continuing putting that stuff together, but yeah, absolutely right. There are these mudras that are being used, this perpetual, even the word city. This word city comes from the Latin cetus, C-T-E-I-S, which means womb.
Right, I didn't know that.
And hall, right, like if city, hall, is the male. Phallus, the phallus, right? In the center of the word phallus is hall. So city hall literally means coitus, copulation. And that's why you have in the very center of the city, the round circle or the fountain with the phallic, whatever, the phallic statue or the phallic, like Nelson's column, or, mostly it's obelisks now. All the sexual innuendo is being played out symbolically, and it has colonized our minds. It has worked to auto-hypnotize us. First, because a great deal of my work focuses on this penchant of people to hypnotize themselves. You don't even need the witch doctor to do it. We're all eager to hypnotize ourselves. We make their job easy, in a way. So yeah, the colors, the decoding of these ancient symbols. Why do these priests wear the flowing robes of the female, and so on and so on? absolutely has to be stayed on top of. We have to decode their symbolism that they're using.
There's a word there's a word we were talking about this week, weren't we?
It was, yeah.
Address. We were talking about address because we actually sit and chatter sometimes about how to decode the language, and you help a great deal. And we've been trying for ages, haven't we? And we found some interesting stuff out, but we don't know if it's... We don't know.
We play with it,
but we've realised that words apply to realities, but they sound the same, but can mean different things. And address is something that we were talking about today. We were talking about the priests and the lords and that sort of thing, and wearing dresses, weren't we? It's amazing. Yeah, as soon as you said dress, we looked at each other and we laughed. We were talking about it yesterday.
Well, people should look up a word, a very, very important word, called kenning, Kenning. It's a word that is used mostly, technically, when scholars are researching it, they usually use it in context with Scandinavian mythology and folktale. But it's a word that is well known also to apply to Scottish folk tales, mythologies, English folk tales, and even Icelandic. And people need to look up that word to get a handle. What a kenning is a hidden meaning. But a kenning is when there can be, even like in the Scandinavian versions, like the Edda, the Norse Edda, there could be up to 5 levels. 5 freaking levels is the furthest it goes. They say it's quite rare. Mostly it's 3 levels. Sometimes 4, and it can even go up to 5 levels of decoding, which means that once you've decoded the first level, you still have 3 or 4 more levels to go. Now, very few minds can do that. They say that there's very few people in the whole world who can decode one level of decoding.
And we've been trying it, yeah? We've been trying it for years, haven't we? We've understood this a long time ago, how to apply. If a word sounds the same, it actually means the same, but can you connect it? Like the word, the bottom of your foot is your soul, S-O-L-E. And that's your physical connection to the earth. But the S-O-U-L is your spiritual connection to the earth. That? You know, the physical and the spiritual. And we've been doing that with lots of things, haven't we? Trying to work out how these words connect. And address is one we were struggling with, but we're going to have a bash with it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because we live at an address, and there must be a reason why we live at an address. Because it sounds like address. There must be a connection, but we haven't figured it out yet, have we?
No.
Well, the thing about the feet is interesting because it turns out that the astrological sign for the feet is Pisces, which is the sign of the soul.
Marvellous. And Pisces Pisces is the 2 feet, isn't it?
2 feet, and it's always the house of the soul.
And it's also what we call the unborn baby, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's spelt for to us. That's how the spell is. It sounds the same, but it's a different spell. Because for to us is how the word is spelt.
Yeah.
This is what we do for fun, mate. This is what we do when we get sat chatting, don't we?
We do.
How to take the language to bits.
Well, in Punjabi, I think the word for feet is per, P-E-R.
Always.
Don't quote me on that, but I think it's per. It's pronounced like P-E-R. So yeah, they're looking at the mysteries of these words is absolutely crucial, and it's a as I say, it's a bona fide study. The symbolic use. So say for instance when they do use this, and like go back to the book of Genesis when you're hearing about a serpent, you're hearing about a garden, you're hearing about a cherub, you're hearing about a cherubim with a flaming sword. When you're hearing about a serpent, when you're hearing about a Lilith, all of this decoding has to occur. They're playing a game of masks, and they have hidden, for the disciplinary arcani, they've hidden the secret message, not sometimes one level behind it, but they can also have, put it in 2 to 3 levels behind it. So you have to keep going before you even have a hope of really cracking what this is all about. It's a unique thing that all the writers of the ancient mythologies, the poets, even the Grimm's fairy tales people, the Hans Christian Andersen's, this was known even up until quite recent times, and it's all been forgotten now. So when we go back and read these incredible fairy tales or incredible mythologies about how the creation came into being and the wars of the gods and the migration of the tribes and the hero who fights the dragon, all of these incredible motifs you see, and then we look in the architecture today and find all of these lions with water pouring out of their mouths. So we have all this punning, and we have all this kenning, and we have all of this symbolic imagery, a whole language of it out there. Like I said, the city and the hall and the obelisks and what have you. And to me, it's fascinating because it's a trail. It leads somewhere. It's very much like you see in the Da Vinci Code and you see in National Treasure. This is even becoming quite popular now.
It is. It's the most extraordinary discovery, isn't it? And I don't even think it's a discovery. I actually think we're recovering it. Because to discover it is to be negative. Because the word dis is to be negative. But I think we're recovering, I think we're remembering it. I think we're putting it back together. That's remember. And I think this is the most amazing journey I have ever been on. But what's occurring to me as well is that it's all cycles, it's all circles. And every time we complete a circle, and it seems to me maybe about every 300 years we complete a circle, we go round again, but this time it's more sophisticated. They're always one step beyond this madness. And we're playing out the old reality that they've developed while we were playing out the old reality. You know, we're living in Pisces while they're getting ready for Aquarius. And this brings me to a question that I'm glad I've remembered to ask, and that is that in the way that I understand it, the Dark Ages, in the big grand year, as it were, the Dark Ages would be November Scorpio, December Sagittarius, January Capricorn, and February Aquarius. Those would be the grand Dark Ages, and we're moving backwards now into Aquarius. Am I getting that right there?
Yeah, there's many ways to read it, depending on what kind of astrology you're using, depending on what kind of tradition you come from.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask, you know, what is the way you see it, because I don't fully understand exactly what that means about going back into Aquarius. To me, that seems to be a darker time than Pisces. I wonder if you could maybe help me with a bit of an answer there on that one.
No, you see, each age, just like each year, has both positive and negatives. Pisces has some very, very positive aspects as well. You see, it's not all negative. And Aquarius has some good, but also some very, very negative. This whole idea of post-humanism, for instance, this whole idea of man becoming a machine, upgrading his mind till it's basically just circuitry of a machine, or bringing the computer up to the human, the biocomputer, all of this nonsense. All of this is based in the fallacy of the thinking that, as you say, is of these technocrats who have been a bit ahead. Actually, it's quite an old agenda, but yes, they are looking to a shift to take place. That is a downside of the Aquarian age. One other thing that is bad about the Aquarian, so-called moving into the age of Aquarius, is that people who don't really understand that freedom comes with a great deal of responsibility then become completely and utterly hedonistic and cut off from the past. Right? The one thing about Uranus and Aquarius is that it's progressive, it's free, it's about being in the now, and it's about thinking of tomorrow. But the downside of that can be that the people who live in that era and the people who embody that kind of energy might stop heeding valuable lessons of the past. As I said at the beginning of our talk here, that I see that happening in the youth. They could care less.
Yeah.
Even though some of the stupid fashions are retro, you have this from time to time. Ultimately, there's no real deep affinity in the average school kid, in the average person today, younger teen, about any of the sacrifices that were made during wartime, about the kind of sacrifices of their grandparents, the times of want, the times of passion. You see, when they go into a museum and look at art, they're not looking at art, they're looking at some psychotic, person's rendition of his own psychosis. They're not looking at the great art, they're not listening to the great music, and they don't want to, and they don't care. So this is some of the bad stuff. There's even more bad stuff, that one could say about the Aquarian, in the sense of this superficiality, disconnecting from the past is basically the way I see it, is two of the most important. And the third one being this more sinister post-human agenda. You see, so just as in the Piscean age, the dark agenda there was selling us a false god. I mean, the god that they were worshipping back there, we are still worshipping, is the god of Akhenaten and his psychotic family, one little mad family from Egypt, and you're worshipping his god for thousands of years. That's bloody great, right? Well, now we're going to be moving into another psychosis, which is a bunch of elitists who think that we're just grubby little humans, want to, convert us all into sort of androids now. So we're going to be living in that fantasy, and there's too many people that are thinking it's wonderful and great, and we're being tenderized for it every day with the new gadgets that they're presenting to us. Nothing wrong in the gadgets themselves, but in the kind of promise that comes with it, and the idea that life is made so much easier and simpler and more streamlined. And so now people have even forgot the art of conversation, because they're constantly on their iPhones, and they're constantly on their Facebooks, and they're constantly on their, their MySpaces and whatever it might be. Each thing is absolutely giving you a promise of one thing, but tearing away and erasing something infinitely more profound that can never be replaced again.
I know. I employ youngsters, and I love having them around because they infuriate me because they're so difficult to train. But the pleasure that I get from actually achieving a little bit of something with them, it's worth it in the end. But you said a word there that really does fit in with my reality, and you said the word aquarium. And we know Pisces is technically the two fish, and the aquarium is where we're going next. And I see that working out in this reality now, where we're actually all being drowned in debt, because debt is, most people say it's money, but actually it's water. Debt is the water representative of this reality. Without it, nothing can grow. Without it, we cannot achieve anything. Water is the money reality, and we've been drowned in debt, and only those at the very top will be able to survive. For me, we're going through what might be called the second great flood, but this time it's been drowned in debt, and we're going to be put into the aquarium. The fish are going to be put into the aquarium and enslaved. That's how reality is decoding for me.
It could be that, or it could be that what they do is they cleverly, not right now, but they later on turn around and go, we have completely renovated the entire financial system of the world. They may start this, in a small way, or they may just launch it, in which the whole planet is not free of debt. Imagine, let's play along with this scenario for a minute. That having drowned us in the stress of debt for so long, but they also want to bring in, see, when you're watching the right hand, you don't see what the left is doing. This is the problem. Now, they drown us in debt, and they keep us in this mode of absolute meltdown and freeze. Because tomorrow, in America, they're bringing in what's known as the Emero, or they're bringing in the cashless society. England will follow. David Icke has been warning people about it for years, and so many others as well. And I tend to believe it's on its way as well. So then what they do is they say, and for a bonus now, hip hip hooray, if we in fact go to this completely, what appears to be libertarian, cashless, card-based society, guess what? It's really going to erase.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. An analogy of that appeared in the Telegraph yesterday.
I can't believe it.
Yep, it appeared in the Telegraph yesterday. I think you'll find it in the American press today. I've seen that news story. Have you got it there with you? I've actually printed it out. I don't think I have, actually. I don't think I did print it. It was in the Telegraph yesterday. I can send you the link.
Yes, please. I have no idea that is happening.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was just we could do this if we wanted to type story. And
yes.
I've actually got the IMF document discussing this possibility. Amazing. This is 24 hours old in my head, and now you're repeating it back to me. I've got the link.
Because I've been thinking about this now for a while, and I think it's like what's called the what do they call it when you have this trump card, or you have this get out of jail free card, where they sell it to us, but they don't sell it to us in a malignant, gun to the head way that a lot of people have been thinking. They actually hand it with a cherry on the top, and that's why we buy it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think you once used the phrase, we'll not have to be forced into the global village. We'll be racing to get in. Fighting to get in, or something like that, I think you said.
Right, because there are a lot of legitimate people, the Alex Jones types, who warn, and believe me, I'm not saying anything against that. I think the warnings need to go out loudly. That's right, but I'm not saying that they are wrong. But what I am thinking is that these guys are so intelligent, the ones that the controllers, that they know that by the monkey, the carrot and the stick, right? Sometimes they get the carrot. The carrot might be rotten, but how the hell does the donkey know that? So they're going to use this. They're going to use this carrot system, saying, "Hey, we can downsize it a lot. We can wipe it out if we all buy into this system." We're right on the cusp in Europe of that. The EC thing, the Euro thing, was just a sort of starting ground. But as they progress, they're liable to turn around and see. Even though you and me, people from the working class, may not ultimately benefit or even like it, we've got all these chumps in the upper middle class who'll just love this idea, who don't think and don't know anything about conspiracy. You see, so even though some of the population may be going, I smell a rat, you have got a whole generation of yuppies, business types, thickos, just go down to the local mall and there they all are, and so this mass of shoppers and this mass of people who just love, the television and the news, BBC and the coverage and who bought into all this lie, they're the ones going to be ahead of us in line, voting for it and grabbing those identity cards and grabbing that system and saying, my God, isn't progress wonderful?
Yeah, it could work that way, or it could work the other way as well, and that is that they've got so many people in debt 53% of households in this country receive more in benefits than they do pay in taxation. And I think it may well, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying it could work that way, you're absolutely right, but it could work the other way as well. And that is that the people in debt are just going to be saying, look, we can't keep these benefits going. Well, you can't pay us, we can't pay you. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take control of the house, the whole infrastructure. And we'll look after you and we'll give you allowances. And the smart meters gives that agenda away a little bit. I know you've got smart meters in America, we've got them coming here as well. And I think it is very possible that very much those that are in debt, their debts will be forgiven, but they'll go on to an allowance-based system.
Yeah.
The middle class is the ones they want to rob, and they haven't finished yet, so we've got a little while to go. But they've got to rob the middle class, and they're going to steal all the pensions off them. I know they are.
Yeah, but the thing with that is why I'm starting to... I agree with you. I think it might go that way. But one thing about that is the one back thing... If I was the controller, I would be advising my fellows to watch out for one scenario. If in this modern day of absolute egregious affluence, you suddenly then downsize people to a poverty level, then you run the risk of civil war. Then you run the risk of absolute insanity, psychopathic insanity, where there is a rising against you. So affluence is the biggest controller of all. These people don't need to downsize anybody anymore. They always do it every 15 years to cull off about 30% of the working class and some of the middle class to get them to, like what they're doing now. These meltdowns are done repeatedly, just like we've seen they were doing at the time of Thatcher with the coal miners and all of this. Every 15, 20 years, they will do this kind of meltdown. It's habitual because they always want the working class to be culled, and they want some of the middle class to fall, about 30, 40%. But they don't do it enough. Like, that's why I don't agree with all of this massive conspiracy of, a total global meltdown. That's never going to happen because...
See, we don't go that way. No, we don't believe that either. We don't. No. We think it's the Fabian steps. Slowly but surely they'll have you. It's the spider. The predator and the prey reality is now where we are. These people have given up on the rules. They've given up on morals and respect and worry. They've completely given up now. Now the worst of society is sat right at the top, and they really don't care. I mean, you may well be... I'm sure you might have heard a little bit about the Jimmy Savile case that's exploded here in the UK.
Yeah, I've got something on my forum. It's absolutely horrendous. I put David Icke's brilliant article up there on my forum.
It is pulling the BBC apart, and we were just chatting before we came on, didn't we? Yeah. We say, out with the old boss, and in with the broom is being harshly swept, isn't the BBC? Yeah. And the establishment is having an upgrade, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And Jimmy,
see, he was so loved. I think that this is one of the things that has been so Jekyll and Hyde about this. Is Jimmy was so loved. He was so good at playing the Harlequin, the sort of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. He was so good at playing the good guy, Mr. Charity. I've always said for years, if they're into charity, watch out. I've always hated the charities, and I've always suspicious of them being involved with the child abduction stuff. But again, nobody paid any attention to that. Yeah. Now it's become quite obvious with this charlatan was a totally despicable character, So yeah, of course, it's gone very deep because he was such a loved icon, and it's shaken up a lot of people's trust, and that's good. That needs to happen every so often.
It is good because the establishment is having to at least cover itself, and as usual, it's taken charge of all the coverage. It's reporting against itself, making documentaries against itself, and putting the very people who it needs on Radio 4 to speak against itself.
It is. What did I say? It's like getting Beelzebub to do a report on what Satan's like.
It is. Yeah. But I mean, it is the old adage, isn't it? I mean, if you've got a foot fetish, go and sell shoes.
Oh, they're bankrupt, man. They're totally bankrupt morally. They don't have any more even ideas. They don't have any more stories to tell. They just can rehash. That's why there's so much retro stuff, is they have to go back and steal and plagiarize from the masters. That's why every proper adventure story or even drama that you see on TV is either a direct plagiarism of something that's been done in the past. Most movies are remakes now. Mm-hmm. It's because they haven't got an idea between the whole goddamn lot of them.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because we know that, don't we?
Yeah.
We are the creation. We create it all. They envisage what they want, but they can't create it. It's like a little child, isn't it? I want this, I want that, I want the other. Mm-hmm. But he can't do it. But he gets other people to do it. I mean, it appears to me that what's required is asked for from the top. it cascades down to the bottom, by which time it's been spoken into reality. Now we have to make it, and then the wealth goes back up to the top again. It's you know, we make it, but we can't afford to buy half the things we make.
Well, one of the most important, I would say, the most important mind control trick, one of the greatest illusions that we labor under, and this goes, you can split this by nation or just as the whole of the world in one mass, and that is that people are of the opinion that to solve the problems of a country or to solve the problems of their region is unbelievably complex and difficult, when in fact it's completely the reverse. It's very, very simple. And the Big Brother has made it appear, this illusion of complexity, that it's so difficult. How can you fix the economy? How can you bring people back to work? How can you restore things to the way it used to be? And they've made this so complex that I'll bet you that every single person listening to the sound of our voice has believed that lie. Everyone listening to us talking now probably believes that it's overwhelmingly difficult to fix everything, and everything that they experience when they step outside their door, it confirms it for them. When they go out and deal with people, you made a comment earlier about meeting people, and so everyone listening to the sound of our voice, when they do engage with the world, they come away, they get back into their car, and they come home and they go, it's unbelievable, it's never going to happen. And this is part of the lie. This is part of the mind control trickery that makes you feel so overwhelmed with the problems that you could not even hope to think of any remedy. And many other, terrible things come from this, like leaving it to others and giving up hope and all this. When in fact the absolute opposite is true. To fix even the most extremely complicated, apparently complicated problems of economy and the world, is extremely easy.
I know, and isn't it frustrating when you know that if you want to be debt free, just stop paying.
Well, there's one of them. That's one of the top of the line, and there's many others. Now, Bo Greitz, one of my heroes, Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz, he said in one of his fantastic lectures that he said that once you find the main poison in the body politic, like a doctor finding the main source of the infection, and once you clear that up, the body itself clears up all of the other secondary and tertiary problems without you having to run around and put out the fire. You have to first isolate the main, area of toxicity, and that can take a little bit of work and a little bit of, getting the heads together and a little bit of research. But once that is done and you find out what the real pestilence is in our society, and you address it and you stop it, automatically a lot of other things start to go right. And I am a big believer in that. But the thing that stops the great remedies from happening is mind control. The people have lost the capacity to think. They don't, or they're not open-minded enough to listen to the remedy, let alone even contemplate it, you see. And they've lost the passion, the will to fight. They've lost the sort of anger, the blue flame of anger to get up and say, we're going to fix things. And we're going to do it at all costs. You see, they've lost this. They've been slowly dumbed down and weakened. And this is the problem why the remedies don't get, put into place. But it's also because of this just simple mind control of them making us believe that it's very complicated, when in fact it's actually extremely simple to fix all of the problems of society.
But do you find yourself, when you're speaking to people, this is a problem I have, when people actually ask what would be a pertinent question, you think, I can answer that. And then you answer it in your own way and you think, hang on, I've got to back up that answer and explain how I've got it. And you think, hang on, they still haven't got it. I'll go back another step, and I'll explain why I got that answer, which got me to that answer, which now makes sense for this answer, by which time they're waiting for you to shut up because they want to talk.
Well, first of all, I don't engage people in the street, so I never, even my closest associates haven't the faintest idea what I do, what I'm into. I don't get into it. And even if they do know who I am and what I'm about, and they want to ask questions, I just politely tell them, look, I'm having a lunch break. I'm actually, I have to tell you this, I hate to tell you this, but actually when I'm just walking around the streets like this, I don't discuss my work. So if you want to know what I do, please, here's my website, go on and research it, read my books.
Yeah. Good idea.
I take the, there's many reasons why I do this, but mostly it's just like I come across as if I'm on holiday, and I don't, there's no way that at this point I can start from A and go to Z and tell you about the entire history of the planet, or unload all my knowledge to you in seconds. It's not possible over this, cookie and coke. It's just not possible. What you need to do, if you're interested in any of these works, go over to my websites, check out some stuff, or I'll refer something that's not my work. Like if I end up talking to them a bit and they tell me they're interested in this, I'll say, oh, well, you should go over and read this book. Or have you read that book? Say they're interested in Egypt or something like that. I'll list them a couple of things or tell them to contact me by email. But I never go deeper than that. I do not get into, major, intense conversations about this. That's reserved for more online.
I learned the hard way.
Yeah,
I learned
exactly.
the hard way,
I'll
yeah.
do it.
Because I've got a fish and chip shop and because I've got a captive audience, I have to say in the early years I did learn the hard way, and I actually still feel the flush of embarrassment now at what I was saying and how I was acting, because this does drive you mad in the early days, doesn't it? It knocks you right off centre and you can't quite get yourself back up balanced again. And it's a good job I had my pal, because I'm not quite sure exactly if we'd have both been able to sit and laugh together today, because you find that your partner can't appreciate what it is that you're seeing.
No,
and I
that's
find
right.
I can't share it either. And what you're saying there is that you when you walk outside the door, you join in with the reality that is outside the door, and don't try and change it. And I'm finding that that is the way to cope with it here as well.
Yeah, I think that I remember I'm always in the middle of a big project anyway, so I have very little physical time. It comes down to a very practical reason, is I simply don't have the time. So and also I just have found that you don't do justice to the knowledge when you're just chatting, briefly to someone about it. It's impossible. I have so much reverence for the knowledge itself that I'd rather they sit down calmly, they go home, they do it online or they read a few books. But there's certainly no way that you can waste breath getting into the highways and byways of it, of a day. I've long since given that up. I think the last time I ever did that was like 1987 or something like that. So since that point on, I simply refuse to do it. I would rather talk about them. I'd rather talk about, some other thing that's going on in life or music or whatever. I do not engage people in the streets. I don't do that. I don't do like the Alex Jones bullhorn thing or let people know what I do or everyone knows what I'm into. It's just such a private thing, and I've never really even advertised my own work. I've always said that when people are ready, they'll come to my work when they, like yourselves, when the time is right for them. There's no reason for me to go out and be ramming things down their throat, because I'm a very big believer that there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's actually a process. You can't chop this stuff down into sound bites. You have to actually begin in the beginning and then move through it and very gradually go. It's like a harvest. It's like savoring a good wine. It's very much a process that has a beginning, middle, and end. It can't be just done in label reading, which is what you see a lot on YouTube and you see on the net in general.
You're
So
right.
people just pick up a few merest sound bites and then go completely ballistic about it, without really knowing anything about what you're doing.
It is difficult, I know. I mean, your website, michaeltsarion.com, is an absolute wealth of information. On that front page, you are fooled into thinking that this is just going to be a 2 or 3 page site, and then you click it and you realise it's nothing of the sort. It's actually it's a compendium. It's an absolute marvel site. If you can get through that site in a weekend, I'll challenge you to try it.
No, they can't. I mean, I think including the YouTube's channels, which are websites, I got about 15, 16 separate sites.
I know.
Some
you have.
some are just a web page that haven't been fleshed out yet. I'm still working on projects, but yeah, you're right. There's tons and tons. There's the Mystery School, which is we have members from all over the world, which is the deepest stuff that I'm into. I mean, the absolute most deepest stuff. And when I say deepest, I mean that's where I provide the tools for people to really crack this mystery. Because learning all these horrors that are happening in the world is only one part of the journey. That's the dirt that you want to know about so you can keep it out. But you also, at the other side of your life, have to then be developing in a proactive way. And it's through the divination arts, it's through these mirrors, it's through these tools that we then develop and come to a higher state of balance. You see, we don't do it by following a guru. We don't do it by going to a church. We don't do it by going to any leader or any external authority. The mystery school tradition, you see, is a completely goes against that. And that was why I love it so much. And that's where the real tools have come into personal balance, where you initiate yourself as a teacher for and to yourself. No priest, no guru, no leader, per se. The cards are your teacher. The chart is your teacher. The numbers of numerology, the tree of life in the Kabbalah, those are the living teachers. You don't need any intermediary. You remember you mentioning earlier about the negatives of the Piscean age? One of the negatives is that we've been all mind controlled for over 2,000 years to believe that our welfare spiritually is in the hands of some other guy who shaved his head and wearing some robes or grown a long beard. There's this old motto saying just because a goat has a long beard doesn't mean he's a high priest. But we have fallen for every goat in a long beard, from Karl Marx all the way back to the Egyptian priests believing some guru on the banks of the Ganges or God knows what. Now it's Eckhart Tolle. He's minus the beard, but I'm sure given time he'll grow a beard.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a leader in this, what we so-called truth movement, and you're in the truth movement, and you're looking for somebody to lead you through the way, you're in the wrong movement.
You've just jumped from one box to another box.
You have, yeah.
That
ain't what it's about.
I think they used to call them prophets, didn't they? Because they were after your money.
Yeah.
They're after your money, and you don't know. You see, unfortunately, they wait. They're very, very cunning. They speak to a new generation who has no idea where the ideas came from. So when somebody listens to an Eckhart Tolle or buys his book, they have no idea, guys, that not a single word that he says is original to himself. He's just parroting great teachers of the past that he doesn't mention. He just repackages it, re-shrink wraps it. Now the words. Now let me make another point. The words that he's speaking are true. I have no problem with the teaching. It's the teacher who have a problem. But we today lack the discernment, the simple discernment, to tell the difference between the donkey and the braying that it's doing.
A great analogy.
But we don't know that this ass, he's speaking the words of God, he's speaking the words of truth, but he's an ass. But we can't see that anymore because we're confused. If he says something in a nice calm voice, this Svengali hypnotic voice, and his face looks clean shaved and he's cool and he's on Oprah Winfrey, he must be good, right? Yeah, right. How many times do we need to be fooled? Do we think he has to be like a Rasputin walking in with or something out of the Blackadder before we know that he's a crazy? No, we fall for every new little punk like that. We fall for everyone because they have streamlined it and cookie cut it, and they've shrink wrapped it for a new generation. A generation that's so young that it thinks he is the originator of those ideas. They have no idea of the amazing scholars of the past, the teachers of the past, who are his predecessors, that he refuses to mention, he won't mention openly. Maybe you'll get a passing reference, if that, and mostly that's from a secondary person. And so these, like I said, these goats with long beards, and you just got to give him time, and he'll have his beard eventually. And my God, sit at their feet. They want you sitting at their feet. What in the hell is this? Have we not sat out enough feet? And I'm worried about the guy who wants us to sit at his feet. I'm wondering what do you get? What's your kick out of this playing God with everybody at your feet? It's ludicrous. And so this is the end of the Piscean age, in which people need to get up, get out of their yoga poses and go and stand up straight and go out and contemplate the mysteries of the universe, contemplate the mysteries all around them, and be their own teachers, and they have tools. There's a Western magical tradition, a beautiful, beautiful tradition, a great archive that has been preserved for us, the numbers, the Kabbalah, the tarot and the astrology and what have you, and even sacred geometry or through geomancy. There's some fantastic stuff out there. The crystals, there's some really great modalities out there, and they're very, very powerful. But there's no intermediary. So I have that on my website, and then I have the books, and I have other things that I try to present, a whole smorgasbord of things for people. Some stuff is free. Other things have to be paid for because, the sweat and blood and the tears that went into creating it. And also the simple sacredness of the knowledge that's there. It's not for everybody. Like on my mystery school, for instance, we just don't accept everyone just because they can pay for it. This is a myth that people think, he just wants your money. No, pal, we don't. We don't accept everyone. I check people out before they become members because it's only the most reverent and the most, really ready for this kind of information. They have to be. It's very, very helpful to have that. We just don't have it open doors for everyone, But we have little modules of it, like time gnosis, which is a nice little system featuring the numbers that you can help people on a day-to-day basis to help them, get into this slowly. Those who are completely unfamiliar with it. So, and then I've got my philosophy work. I'll be doing a new book on philosophy as we go. Got the female Illuminati thing. So I always am stepping back from the canvas, going forward, going to the side, walking around the thing. Never just becoming fanatical. Never becoming didactic. Never becoming a jack of, like I know it all. I'm always revisiting what I've known before. I'm always re-looking at the same content, whether it's the concept of evil, or the concept of the genders, or the concept of world control. I'm always re-looking at it, ready to unpack it in another way, constantly, never always coming from the one perspective and just beating that to death. This thing is incredibly multifaceted, and we need to always stay open-minded and re-look at it in different ways.
It's a wonderful life. It is a wonderful life. And if you don't think it is, it's because you're not living it properly, are you? You're not living it properly. Now, I know that you're coming to the UK soon, and I believe the Doncaster event is something that I'm going to go to. And it doesn't give a lot of what you're up to in Doncaster, so I thought I might ask you to what's going on at that event? How's it going to work? Because I'm actually going to come to that one.
Well, right now I've changed a lot of. I'm very fed up with the normal kind of platform, and I've said no to a lot of gigs throughout my life because I'm just against repetition. So if people check my work out, they'll see that I've barely been on stage twice repeating the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'll always try to do something new. I got the opportunity in Australia to do my post-humanism work, which is brand new, so I said yes to that. But a lot of other people just want you to talk about what you've done 10, 15 years ago and regurgitate, or even they want me to come and do the symbolism thing. All over the world, from Croatia to Australia to America, I get all these invitations, and I say no because it's done. I've done it. I've done videos on it. I've done talks on it. And the Doncaster thing was to launch a brand new idea, in which I believe that it's time now for the audience to participate. And I'll tell you why. I think that now, and I won't name names, but most of the people that get up on stage today, the audience actually knows more than they do about these subjects. And I'm not going to name any names, but I'm not stupid either. I know that the audience is way up to speed with a lot of the subject matter and could probably even do as good a job, if not better, than half the teachers who have stuck records. 30 years ago, they were saying the same thing as they're saying now, or even if they're Johnny-come-latelys, they're either ripping other people off or they're just superficial in their knowledge, right? What I'm really trying to say is that the audience knows as much, if not more, than the speaker. So in my future, I would really like to have where the audience now has a right to speak up and speak and say. Now, most of the other speakers that get up on stage aren't as eclectic as I am. They couldn't answer questions on a multiplicity of topics, so it would be useless. So you have to find a fine balance. You can be a guy who's a great, great, great teacher, great at his work, but if he was hit by 100 questions from 100 people in the audience, how do you know he's going to answer with any kind of coherence or intelligence on those subjects? Now, I am one of those people who's capable of doing that. So I think it's going to be a great system to have the audience ask questions, calmly, and bring whatever questions they want, as long as they're respectful. And then we have this dialogue, and I think I'd like to launch that. So the whole idea of the conspiratorium is to launch that new paradigm. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's no real subject matter. They can ask me any subject that they want. I'll try to answer it, and we just sit there and have a good time. There was some great times I had in Australia, not when I was talking, but off to the side when we had these meet and greets. And that's what kind of got me thinking about doing this, because it's so fantastic to meet people who've had a tremendous experience themselves of what they've been doing, and there are people like yourself who've been studying this for such a long time and have a lot to share. And so the guy, it's okay to have a format in which somebody gets up to a podium and speaks for 3 or 4 or even more hours, that's fine. But I think that's been kind of beaten to death. And I don't know if I'm right, but in my own life, I thought that it would be really nice to change that format. Just change the format to sort of reverse it. I really like that BBC Question Time show. I don't know if it's still going in England, but
I was going to liken it to that when you'd finished. I was going to say, is it going to be an open audience question time where you basically just wait your turn and ask your question?
It is. And by the way, the theatre we're doing it in, it turns out that the Question Time was actually filmed there.
Nice one. Now that
was a strange coincidence. Yes,
this is Sunday.
No, exactly, something like that, something more loose. Mm-hmm. I'm fed up. I've done all the talks I want to do in that format. Maybe I'll do something again in a year or so. But for right now, I like it to change dynamic. And I saw enough of that in Australia to see that, my goodness, that really does work, because people have a lot to say about things and they have intelligent questions to ask. And there may be things we also haven't covered. There's maybe things. See, I like to learn from the audience. This is how we take notes. You see what people ask.
It's the old sat listening thinking, well, go on, you ask him. Well, I'm not asking him. Well, you ask him. Well, yeah, I look stupid. I'm not asking him. Isn't it? It's the old, I've got a question, but no one else is asking, so I'm not doing it. And when you're stood on the stage like that, you don't do this, by the way, but when people are on stage, they can sometimes feel untouchable. You're not allowed to ask them questions. This is their presentation. You're not allowed to butt in. And you think, yeah, I know, but I want to. So I'm coming to this one. This is Sunday, November the 4th, Doncaster Dome, 2 till 6 in the afternoon. Good timings as well. That's a good time. I'm coming to that one, and I'm going to invite you, my pal, to come with me as well.
Mischievous night as well.
Yeah, that'll do. We can get back and do a bit of mischief when we get home, can't we?
Yeah.
Oh, I get 200 emails a day from people asking some brilliant questions, even doing more than that, sending me amazing material. A good lot of the material that you find on my forum, for instance, comes from habitual friends, internet friends who love my work and want to see it continue and are doing a lot of work to support me. All over the world. These are people who don't even know each other. And they're sending emails and putting up YouTubes and helping to get the message out. So, I go day by day. I don't have a lot of plans. I don't have a lot of future visions of where I'm going. I just do things as much as I can, day by day. And very much, as I said, I don't go out there to advertise myself. I know that my work is a little bit heavier, a little bit more intense and complex. So I then have always waited for those people to come along at the right time. They sample all the other stuff, the lighter stuff. They have more questions. They're not getting the answers. And then finally they gravitate to my work. There's so much great free stuff there on the web, as you say, that I've got up there, and hopefully they will then mature to a much deeper personal level where they really realize that the real teaching happens within themselves, that they don't even need any external authority at all. And at that point, then they can come over and look what I've got there at the mystery school level. But there's so much even before that to learn and study and get familiar with. It's really, really intriguing and very, very helpful. But I just always emphasize that the biggest change always happens on the personal level rather than on a collective level. It never happens. The Segovias and the Beethovens, single individuals, have changed the world. Can you imagine how much even the one person like a Mozart or a Beethoven have changed the world? What do we need mass movements for? It's all about an individual whose work, a Van Gogh or whoever it might be, Mahatma Gandhi, right?
It's funny, you've just answered a question. I was going to ask you a question on that vein. There are some people in the movement that think we need to rise up and we need to have riots and tanks on the street, stuff like this kind of thing. And that doesn't fit comfortably with me. And you've just answered that question for me.
It's the knowing ledge, isn't it?
It
we
is.
need to get to the knowing ledge. and if you don't know what to do, it's because you don't have the knowing ledge.
We need to box clever, don't we?
Yeah.
I would say that it depends on the level of injustice. I believe in only personal development really ultimately changes things. But if the powers that be want to keep pushing us, and their injustices start escalating, absolutely get out in the streets and throw the bastards into the ocean. I'm not a pacifist. I believe that if they want it, they'll bloody get it, and it's happened many times in society. However, I look at the broader picture to say I don't want to then replace one tyranny with another tyranny.
No, exactly that.
By the old boss. Yeah.
Yes, as you said, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not shy of pushing back. If they want to keep on pushing, then these injustices will go too far, and it's damn right that the people should rise up and push back violently if necessary.
Unfortunately, I think that's what they want us to do. Actually, I think it is going to come to when are we going to have had enough? I'm not sure in this country whether we're going to actually rise up like that, but I think in America, you're going to have. You're going to have some challenges in America. I'm not quite sure. What are you seeing? You live there. What are you seeing? What are you feeling with the?
Yeah, I see it's on the edge. But what I think is going to happen now is that they've shaken up society enough. They've culled off that 30-40%, and now probably a certain amount of prosperity is on its way back. That's what I think. They can't go any further because they will have absolute meltdown, and that doesn't serve their problem because they're identifiable. We know where their kids go to school. We know where they live. So they don't want the masses of society becoming so disgruntled that then we come and start burning their houses down. So they're smart enough to know that affluence is the greatest bromide.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes, a bit 7 years good, 7 years bad. Although it's not always 7 years now, is it? They do it a bit quicker.
I think so. Well, there's always an undercurrent of trauma. They always keep a steady undercurrent of trauma, but then they spike it every about 10 to 15 years. And that's just to make sure that some of the middle classers fall through the net into the working class. They want them to fall down into poverty, but they can't afford the whole lot to go because the wheel still needs to be pushed. In America, what they're doing is that they not only cull the 30-40% of the middle class to get them to fall to the grade of the working class, they replace them by immigrants. They replace them by semi-skilled immigrants. I don't blame the immigrants. They're only too happy to get a better deal for their lives and come to a new country and potentially get work and all of these freebies. So I'm not really necessarily blaming them. I'm blaming the countries for allowing this to happen, because then what happens is when you bring in these semi-skilled, impoverished people that you've helped to impoverish their countries for centuries through the World Bank and everything else, those people are too happy to work at scale labor to do any of the most menial jobs. So in America, this is the dynamic, that the skilled people are pushed aside into poverty. Immigrants are brought in who can barely speak the language, have no reason to want to really integrate with anyone, who have no interest in integrating and do not integrate, but they're handed all the pieces of the cake that have been built by people they've never known. They come in and they reap the rewards. They happily do the menial jobs without being concerned about the political ramifications. They're just perfecting their lives. They're having a bit better for themselves, and they could care less what the consequences are. So this is in Ireland context, Slavic guys are being brought in from Poland and other places to replace the workforce there. So this is a technique that's used.
It is. It's in England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. I hear the same things. The same. I mean, if I wanted to emigrate to any one of those countries that I've just mentioned, I would have to sing and dance and probably get refused. But on the other side,
you probably wouldn't even make it then.
Yeah. That's what I said. I'd sing and dance and still get refused. Whereas I'm led to believe, and only through news stories, so I don't actually repeat it like it's true, that the borders are wide open for some people. Yep. But it is true in this country. The borders are wide open in this country, even though we're being told to be frightened of Al Qaeda. But the borders are still wide open, and we're still bombing brown people. But the borders are still wide. You see, people can't connect those two things that don't make any sense to them. Now, I know you're also taking a trip over to Ireland while you're here, aren't you? We've
always got something going on. There's a potential to do my occult history of Ireland talk. It's slightly different than the Irish origins. That's a much larger thesis, but I have a stripped down talk on the occult history of Ireland based on this brief article that I did, and I got invited over there, so we're trying to establish that right now.
Right. Well, I have to say it has been a remarkably an hour and 10 minutes has just flown by. It has just flown by. I have to say, from everybody associated with Critical Mass radio station and Andy and myself, it has been a pleasure to spend time in your company, Michael. It really has.
Well, I really appreciate both of you, Andy and Paul. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to talk to you guys from England, and again, compliments on the work that you're doing.
And you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll hope to post a question to you. I'll be there Sunday, November the 4th in Doncaster at the Dome. I will both be there, and we'll spend between now and then thinking of something good that we can think of. It'll be nice to shake hands and say and wish you well for the future in person. So, Michael, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck in everything you do, sir. Thank you.
Okay, let's stay in touch. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Well.
Very good.
Wow, I've been so excited about that. I can't wait to listen back now, see if I've copped it up or not. Anyway, we haven't had a drink or anything.
We haven't, no.